Hey y'all, today's guest is the amazing Rose Lewis. Rose is an artist, musician, and, quote, general busybody. I had to put that in quotes because I feel like you can't call someone a busybody unless they call themselves a busybody. But Rose does so much visual art, bands, radio interviews, DJing, publications, writing. Rose really does it all, and it was a joy to get to learn about all of it. We talked about Rose's band Love in Hell. We talked about a rare band called Pumping Iron. We talked about the Scorpio Mind Zine, and honestly, we talked about so much more. It was such a fun conversation. If you're into anything punk, anything DIY, or anything Portland, Oregon, I think you're going to love this conversation. As always, if you want to support what we do, you can do so at tapeclub.substack.com. All right, enjoy my conversation with Rose. Rose Lewis, thank you for joining me here on the J Card. Pumped to have you.
I'm so delighted to be here. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, and you know what? It's great to meet you too. And you're seeing this weird new setup I have. Not new for everything, but this is the first time I'm in it. So, Rose, you do a lot. So on your website, which I love, by the way, the website is like immaculate. It's so like just perfectly easy to read through. It's not like over the top. I'm going to take a suggestion from it and make a website like this, I think, one day. You write that you're an artist, a musician, and a general busybody. Based in Portland, Oregon. So you do a lot of stuff. You do art stuff, you do music stuff, radio, DJing, writing. When I have someone on who's multidisciplinary like that, my first question is always, what do you consider your main discipline, or does it change over time? Where is it right now? Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, I would say that everything that I do is basically a tentacle of the same jellyfish, and the overarching jellyfish is that I think I'm a punk. So writing, political activism, music, visual art, socially engaged art, all of that kind of fits within that. Radio DJing, record review, zine publishing, all of that is part of the same general all-encompassing sphere, because I find that to be easier than trying to break myself down into, I am at the moment an MFA candidate, so visual art and socially engaged art is taking up quite a lot of my time, but I'm on summer break, so now I get to shift back into show booking, sicko mode, and working on stuff with the band.
The MFA is related, like you said, to kind of visual art and activism and stuff like that. So But you just said you're taking a break from it, so now you don't have to do as much activism now.
Well, the activism is kind of ongoing, but it's I'm on summer vacation from school.
I was just messing with you. Because I was like, okay, well, thank God now I don't have to do any more of that fucking activism this month. That's great. I love that. Tell me a little bit about your current band. Love in Hell is the name of it. Tell me about the genesis of it, the band members, tell me all about it.
I love all of my children equally, but I do think that this is my favorite band that I've ever been in. And we've been playing together. I think Sam and I started jamming together in maybe 2021. And we met because our old bands pre-COVID had played a bunch of shows together. She used to be in this really cool trio called All Hits. And I was in a band called X Kids at the time, and then also in a band called Dials. And I think for a lot of people, COVID was a very challenging time for music practice because you're finding all these new logistical difficulties and safety difficulties around practicing, and you can't play shows in the normal way that you could. And so both of us went through some kind of band reshuffles, and we're sort of finding our footing again. And I was playing rhythm guitar and doing a little bit of songwriting for this band called Dials, but it was kind of, I had always viewed that as sort of a way that I could get good at being like a supporting player, and then having that be my only band for a time was like, oh, well, I'm writing all these songs that are, I think, a little bit too irreverent and silly for this extremely serious, beautiful political post-punk band that I was in. And Sam and I had a conversation about how we both really loved the Dead Milkmen, and after her band kind of was disintegrating, we thought, well, very low pressure, maybe just once a week, we'll just meet up, we'll try out some things. We know that we're not going to be playing shows anytime soon. We'll just see what happens. Who knows? And we did that for about a year, and then decided, okay, we've actually have a few things that are basically resembling songs. Maybe we'll try to find a bass player. And our friend Aaron, whose old band Way Worse, we had played a bunch of shows with together before COVID, her bandmate was preparing to become a parent and also going through nursing school, and so she was at liberty to join our band as a bass player. And I think when we'd had maybe 2 rehearsals together, our friend Corby got in touch and said, hey, so your first show is going to be a benefit for a festival that I'm putting together on July 24th. And we thought, oh, interesting. Okay, we've had our bass player for 2 rehearsals. We don't have a band name yet, and that's like 2 months away. And he said, yeah, so you better hop to it. And that I found was really helpful to have that deadline to kind of get us really into gear. And we've been playing together ever since.
I was about to say that deadline probably helped the band form, because I feel like with most artists, like, it's a lot easier to work when you have a deadline and you know, okay, I actually have to I have to have something ready by this point or else I've failed or whatever.
Totally. Yeah, I think it really helped us kind of lock in. And it was also, I mean, he and our friend Mara were co-organizing this gigantic festival of multimedia arts. And so it was really cool to be supporting that cause as kind of our first debut in the scene.
And that was, when was that again?
That was 2022.
Okay, cool. All right. So it's been a while now. It's been
I'd say
4 years. We're coming up on the 4-year anniversary, I think.
It's pretty exciting. Yeah.
You got any big plans?
I don't know. This summer we're a little bit limited because Erin, our bass player, is doing costuming for a TV show. So she's doing super long shoot days, most days of the week. So we have, before this show airs, we're going to be playing a show in Seattle and one in Olympia. And actually we're also playing a very unpatriotic show on the 4th of July. But at the moment, the rest of our calendar for the summer is kind of undefined. But we'll probably have something exciting coming up.
What is it like? Because I lived in Portland for a couple of years, so I sort of know the answer to this. But tell listeners and viewers who might not know, what is it like trying to tour out of a place like Portland, Oregon? Because it's kind of far from stuff. Tell me a bit about your touring life.
Yeah, this band hasn't toured a ton. I think we've pretty much just gone up to Washington, and then actually we've played a couple shows in Moscow, Idaho, which is really special because it's, Idaho is the somewhat more conservative area. Moscow is this really tiny college town, but a good friend of mine from Vancouver, BC lives there now, Alicia, and she organizes this really cool fest called Punk-infused, which is like queer DIY punk fest in Moscow to kind of combat the rising tide of evangelical Christianity that's taking over the town. So that's
fighting
probably
the good fight, fighting
totally
the very difficult fight.
Absolutely. So that's, I think, the furthest afield that we've gone. In terms of other touring experiences that I've had, I think I've done kind of the West Coast, like down to LA and back. And it's a lot of driving. It's definitely a lot of long drives, and you have to figure out kind of where your energy and your gas money is going. There can be pretty interesting small places to break up the drive along the way. I've had a lot of fun playing shows in Eugene. Our friends Callie and Alex own a really lovely record store there called Moonrock Records, which hosts in-store shows, which have been super fun. But we, I think partly just because of differences in kind of our day job schedules, have not yet done a super big tour, but we're dreaming about it in the future.
That's one of those things that really catches up with you, adult life and real life, where you're just like, I just don't have time to do shit anymore. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's like,
yeah.
What else am I doing? Nothing like special, but I just don't have time to do shit. I mean, even with this show, it's like over the last few months, I've been like, all right, I have to juggle, schedules and all that. It's a lot,
Yeah.
If you're ever thinking about starting a band or a podcast, don't do it, listeners. Don't do it. It's not worth it. You don't need to do it. Watch this show, listen to Love and Hell. That's all you need. You don't need anything else. Speaking of Love and Hell, so y'all have a music video for a song called The Empress, and I noticed that you did the animation for that, which I think is very cool. Tell me a bit about the process of animating that.
I have never done any formal animation training whatsoever, and a lot of my inspiration came from this Colorado-based collage artist named Stacy Steers. I used to intern at the Contemporary Art Museum in Boulder, and she makes these incredible animations where each frame is a collage, and she uses a lot of these very old photographs by a guy named Edward Muybridge, who was one of the kind of pioneers before movie filming as we know it was invented. He'd figured out this very complicated system for taking photos of something in motion. And so there's this amazing, totally open source database of all of his strips of a horse jumping over a fence or someone riding on a goat or whatever. And so a lot of the imagery in that is traced from Muybridge stuff. I just did that in Photoshop, and which is, I've since talked to animator friends who are like, it's insane to animate an entire thing just in Photoshop, but I don't have the other software. And then a lot of the backgrounds are based partly on this tapestry sheet design that my parents used as curtains when I was growing up, that actually is kind of a weird point of connection between a lot of the punk community, because various of us have had those sheets in our homes at different times. And also other sort of medieval tapestry stuff. The impetus for the song is that our friend Brie McKenna, who plays in the band Taco Cat, had this idea in her social circle in Seattle of doing a compilation that would be various people writing a song for each card in the major arcana. And it had come up because Julia Shapiro had pulled the card Death, and she put that on her own album because she's like, my friend Brie had this idea and she never got it together to actually do the whole thing. And then Brie posted this kind of mock mad, I'm still definitely going to do that. And I messaged her and said, oh, count me in if that is an idea that you want to take on. So I wanted the kind of feel of the video to relate to tarot art.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense, right? And the Empress and all that. And shout out Taco Cat. I want to say I
Absolutely
saw them. I'm pretty sure this is such a weird place to have seen them, but I think I saw them at Sasquatch in like 2013 or something
totally.
like that. I think they played like the local stage.
Sure.
And that was fucking sick. But I did not think I'd hear the name Taco Cat come up today, so that's very cool.
They're actually, kind of an important part of my musical development, because when I was probably 17, I visited Seattle for the first time and got this big compilation of all of the bands that had played at the Funhouse over the past couple of years, and their song UTI was on there, and it was like, oh my god, I've never heard anything like this. So, precious memories.
For sure. Yeah, they're iconic. I want to ask a question about another band that maybe is iconic. They seem iconic from what I'm reading. They're called Pumping Iron, and it says no public recordings exist of this band. Tell me a bit about this mythical, mystic band that no public recordings exist of.
Yeah, I think Pumping Iron is actually one of my bands that's got the ratio of amount of press that we've received to number of shows that we've played is like really wild, because we got a few mentions in the Willamette Week Best New Band poll. But Pumping Iron is a hardcore band composed of the least hardcore people you could possibly imagine. So my friend Bob from Lithics played guitar, I played bass. Our friend Tony, who owns a record store called Musique Plastique, was the singer, and our friend Kyle, who's been in a bunch of different projects, played drums. And I guess it basically came about because Bob and Kyle had been listening to Gangrene and were like, we want to do just a really stupid hardcore band. And at the time, I barely played bass, and so they thought, well, that's great. That's really fits in with this kind of meathead 80s sound that we're going for. And I think we played less than 6 shows over the entire time that we were a band. And we do have a few recordings, but they all have various things wrong with them, so they're currently sitting in the vault. And it's been several years since we got together, and every time I run into like one or two of the members at a public event, I think, we gotta play our annual gig at least. But so far it hasn't happened.
Yeah, and then get those recordings out there. The people need to hear them. I may be like misremembering this or making this up, but I feel like Lithics. So I had some friends who were in a band when I lived in Oregon, a small band called Grand Horse that like, I think I filmed like a little vlog of them one time at their plant at Mississippi. And, I think happened to be Lithics' first show, maybe.
Oh, that's possible,
they shared a bill, and it was like probably 2014 or 2015 or 2013, maybe. I don't know, something like that. But I think I actually have footage of the sandwich board outside that like has Lithics' first show on there. So that's weird connection. Yeah,
they're a fantastic band.
I want to talk a little bit about, you briefly mentioned this, I think, that because it's summertime now and you're stepping away from activism, you're going to be doing some more booking this summer. Tell me a bit about that world. In the email thread that where we're setting up this conversation, you mentioned benefit shows and how you book a lot of that. So just tell me a little bit about the world of booking and kind of your role in it.
Yeah, I don't have a sort of consistent, I'm not like, nobody's paying me to book at a particular place. I will just, I love sending email. So I will get this brainworm of an idea of, I would love to juxtapose this artist and this artist, and I'll email them both and try to find a date that works, and then I'll find a venue that works. And I do put a lot of that towards benefit shows, because I think in the kind of segment of the music world that I operate in, not very many of us are seeing music as kind of our main way of making a living. And at that point, it's like, well, we could make a lot of difference for the print shop or an abortion fund or, immigrant legal support or whatever. And that might kind of go a little bit further than just kind of like helping us pay like our practice space rent for the next couple of months or whatever. So I find that a lot of people are usually very excited about putting their efforts towards something. And I think it's a nice way, because you're going to a show anyway, and then this way you also know that your money is going to something really impactful. So, it's just, it really is just a lot of sort of cat herding of like, what's the Venn diagram overlap of like when all of the bands are free and when the venue has free, and what seems like a reasonable night of the week to host a show, and then doing all of my promotional efforts. So there's, sending in the show listing to the alt weeklies. There's a few different message boards that people use, bothering my friends who still DJ on radio shows to mention it on air, social media, doing physical flyers, volunteering to make a cake, emailing everybody in the bands to make sure, like, okay, do any of you need to share gear, all that sort of thing. And it's been really fun. I just did one recently for the East Side Community Lunch Program, which is a great opportunity for people to get free food twice a week at the Quaker Meeting House. And I did a really fun one for the IPRC, which is our community print shop, zine library, zine self-publishing resource thing, and another one for some legal and living expenses for some folks who are dealing with immigration-related difficulties.
Amazing. You're out here doing it. You're really doing it. I mean, that's like DIY punk shit to the core. Like you're like totally having an impact on your immediate community, and that's what it's all about. I have two more things I want to ask you about. So let's start with this one, the School of Each Other. So tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, that is a wonderful collaboration that's fairly new with my dear friend Piri Sloan, who's a really incredible multimedia artist who's one of my classmates in grad school. And we had the assignment of pairing up and inviting a guest to come in and speak to our entire class about either their art practice or what other kinds of work that they do that was sort of related to topics we were thinking about. And I'm one of the most long-term Portlanders in the program, and I take my role as the sort of concierge of Portland very seriously. So I had come up with this huge list of people that we could interview who are, artists, chefs, farmers, musicians, activists, writers, speakers, whatever. And then we realized, we can only pick one person off of this list, but they all seem really cool. And Piri said, well, we could just, have them over for dinner at your house and do that. And then a couple days later, she said, what if we gave our invited speakers like honorary degrees, and what if we introduced the entire thing wearing academic regalia? And then it just sort of escalated in absurdity from there. And so what we're currently thinking of it as is basically like a way for people to share knowledge that they've obtained outside of institutional settings. It can also be a way for people who work within institutions to maybe share what they're doing with a broader audience. We're interested about kind of getting slightly out of the sort of bubble of like creative people into more like other people who might be sort of surprised to find themselves engaging with his art project. And so far we've done a radio activation of it where we got various of our friends to submit little clips of them talking about skills that they've learned outside of school and then broadcast that over this internet radio show. And then we had my friend Josephine Lacosta, who's a really wonderful chef, but also curator, but also bodybuilder and also artist and writer, come speak about kind of what's going on in her life and career. And then we did a little parade as part of our program's end of year celebration where we got people to make emblems of things that they've learned, and then we carried them around campus with like kazoos, and it was a lot of fun.
It sounds amazing. Like it sounds like a networking event without being as stuffy as being like a networking event, and it also sounds like a salon without being as pompous as saying it's a salon. You know what I mean? It just feels like it's like bringing people together to commune, I guess. How can people learn more about that? Because that's super interesting.
We haven't built a website for it yet because it's like that new. So I would say that probably looking at kind of either Piri's or my social media or our artist websites is probably where you can find some information about that. I think Piri has the most comprehensive update of it on her site, which I believe is just pirisloan.com, but I could be wrong. Yeah.
I love it. Last thing I want to touch on, and like I shouldn't have saved this one for last. I feel like I'm burying the lead here, but Scorpio Mind. What is Scorpio Mind? How did it start? I always have this habit of like writing all these little bullet points, and then like by the time I get to the main thing, it's like 18 minutes in. I'm like, what am I doing? But Scorpio Mind, tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, it's I'm really actually excited to get it started up again for the summer, but it's been going on sporadically since 2019. So I think I did it for like an entire calendar year and then took a little bit of a break and then have restarted a couple of times. But it's a print newsletter, and the current iteration also includes a Lino Cut print for every month. And part of it was a way of staying in touch with friends of mine who are not quite as much on social media or not as much on the internet. And I was thinking both about the kinds of letters that my parents get from all of their friends at Christmas time that will have the sort of like, here's what the entire family's been up to for this calendar year. And also the little like coffee news sheets that you sometimes get at various cafes and things. So it does sometimes have event listings, although it doesn't always arrive promptly enough for those to be particularly useful. And then it'll have usually a little blurb about kind of what I'm up to, and then little sections for like music I've been digging recently, books I've read. Maybe there will be a recipe, maybe there will be some movie reviews. My very good friend Courtney, who's a former therapist, will write an advice column sometimes, which has been super fruitful and beautiful. And I think at the moment I have about 75 subscribers. But I've been defeated by linear time and the process of having homework again for the first time in 15 years. So currently, I think one person has read the November issue because we happened to be hanging out when I had just come from the print shop with all the copies in my backpack, and the rest have not been put in the mail yet. But I think... So it may have to become more of like a quarterly rather than a monthly while I'm in school, but I'm preparing kind of a jumbo issue to go out over the summer.
I think if you ever want to start a side publication to Scorpio Mind, you should call it Defeated by Linear Time, and it should just come out like no set schedule, just whenever. Yeah,
totally.
That's so cool. I was gonna ask about the advice column because I saw that there was a link to like submit questions. So I was like, it's so cool. It feels like a throwback because like I don't know. To me, like I always think of like being a kid and like seeing advice columns in magazines and stuff like that. And I don't think they really exist anymore. I mean, maybe there's YouTubers who have YouTube channels where they give advice. Right. Who the hell knows? But that's super cool. Courtney, right? Is that the only other person who helps you with this, or do you have anyone else that you go to for stuff?
Pretty much. I'm actually kind of semi-facetiously looking for an intern to help me address envelopes because my handwriting is pretty poor, and I've had a few different issues where I've had like 4 or 5 folks' stuff get returned to sender, and then I'm too disorganized to send it back out to them. And I've also found that I really like the time-consuming, hand-done, nothing electronic, very deliberately laborious aspect of it, but then also addressing 75 envelopes by hand is kind of an accomplishment. So if any listeners... Oh, yeah.
If there's any listeners or viewers out there who want to address envelopes, do it. Or we can start a chain where like each person is in charge of addressing one envelope to the next person.
There we go. Yeah.
Or you could get one of those things that I feel like I've seen this device, videos of this somewhere, where like you're writing, right? But it's connected to 2 more pens. And so you can do like 5 at a time or something.
At least for the or I could just make a stamp for the return addresses, but I do like the idea of the multi-pen.
Yeah, well, I guess you're right. It wouldn't work that would be 5 to the same place. Right. So not a great idea. All right, this is why we work them out. No, and last thing I'll say about Scorpio Mind is I looked at the pricing model, and I gotta say, huge fan of the pricing model. The way that we do the tapes at Tape Club is $5 a month. It's kind of like my arbitrarily set limit where I've just been like, we don't need to charge more than this. Like, it's just going to be this. And like, if enough people at some point like it where it offsets the amount of money we're putting into it, great. But like, it's like literally no one should be paying more than $5 for a fucking cassette tape. Like,
totally. Yeah, absolutely.
That's just how it is.
For sure.
All right, let's do this. We are kind of running over time here. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get to your mixtape. All right, we are back with the mixtape. Rose, why don't you tell me a little bit about the theming of this? Was there any particular overarching theme you had in mind when you put it together? Or what was going through your mind when you picked these tunes?
I was thinking a lot about my personal history with mixtapes, which starts probably back in high school. And something that I've always really liked about it is the sort of slightly competitive aspect of it being a platform to share really strange, obscure, unusual music that you might not necessarily find other places particularly easily. And I had a friend group whose real kind of love language is mixtapes, and I think for a lot of us it was about like how cheap and easy it was to find an old battery-powered tape deck that you could kind of hang on the handlebars of your bike as you're going around town. So this is reflecting that selection. And then it was also, I mean, it is really hard, I'll talk about this in the honorable mentions, to limit it to just 6 songs because I have so many dear personal friends whose music I would like to share. So I had to make the hard rule that this is not music by personal friends, except for the last track, because 2 of the members of that band were 2 of the first people to ever send me mixtapes in the mail. And so I thought that would be a nice way of honoring them and their contributions to my life.
Amazing. I love the tease. Now the listeners have to stick around to the end to find out who those friends are. Let's start with the first track. The first track is by Kate Bush, and it is Frightened Eyes, but it is a demo version. So tell me a bit about why you picked this one.
I don't think this one ever made it onto one of her albums, so this is just one of her very, very early demo tapes when she was probably 16 or 17, just playing by herself on piano, and you can hear the kind of just pops of the recording in the background. And Kate Bush is probably one of my favorite songwriters and just kind of conceptual artists of all time. And I love how into the production she gets and how really big her soundscapes can be and how really big the mythology of everything that she's working with can be. But I also really like this just much more intimate, small, solo, teenaged, real like social anxiety ballad. And I just think it's really a sweet glimpse into kind of what her life was like before she got mega famous.
I'm curious to know, you're a Kate Bush fan. How did you feel when basically, I don't know, I don't want to say she blew up, but like she blew up again or whatever. The moment where like whatever show that was used her music. How did you feel about that when like that song was being played everywhere and there's a bunch of people talking about her? Was there a little piece of you that was like, you don't even fucking know Kate Bush? Or like, how did you feel about it?
I mean, there's always some aspect of that, but I think it was also a good reminder that, she was like a mega famous artist in the 70s and had a #1 hit with Wuthering Heights, which is pretty wild to imagine in today's pop music landscape. So I think it does, really speak to her staying power as an artist. And there was a very sweet little interview with her on Women's Hour where she was talking about just how delighted she was that people were connecting with her music again. And I thought that was really heartwarming.
I love it. Let's listen to a little tiny bit of it. Frightened Eyes demo by Kate Bush.
Why is she looking at me? As I drift from one to one, I can see.
Next up, we have Am Gariad live on Bandit. This is a live version by Cate Le Bon. I've heard multiple people tell me multiple things. I'm going to just account for all of them. But tell me why you picked this one. And this one, a live version. Is this the only version of it that exists, or is there other versions?
Yeah, there's a studio version, but I think what I really like about the live version is that she's using the tinny little keyboard drum machine, which is also a big part of my own like tape-based demo music practice when I was a teenager. And I chose it partly as just a sort of natural progression from Kate Bush, partly in line with my theme of kind of obscure, unusual, alternate versions of songs that you might get on a mixtape. And I got really into Cate Le Bon when I was trying to teach myself Welsh, which I'm very, very, very bad at. But a lot of her early work before she kind of blew up internationally is in Welsh, and I guess she still speaks Welsh at home. And so I found this to be just a really nice window into that world. And I think she's a really interesting, experimental, wild songwriter. So it was nice to see also kind of an early career glimpse of what she was doing before she blew up.
I think trying to learn Welsh is like such a mammoth task. You really went for it. Of all the things you could have picked, you picked Welsh. Are you still learning it, or how did it go? Did you kind of put it to the side?
I've been doing it on Duolingo for a while. I've always been kind of a language nerd. So, I did Latin in high school. I did Russian in college. I currently work for a Russian department. And I was briefly part of the Oregon Welsh Society as a way of getting a little bit more conversation practice, but that was kind of tricky. It is actually, and I have some Welsh heritage, so that was kind of the original impetus, and I spent a little bit of time in Wales when I was a child, and the musical history there is really important. So it's called the Gwlad y Gân, the land of song, and song making of all kinds is super important there, and so getting some sort of linguistic connection to that was really nice. But it is tricky because, there's like 5 people in the state who can talk like a little bit.
Yeah, and also I feel like there's like some meme online that I've seen where it's like the longest name of a place or whatever is like some Welsh place, and the sign is just like super long.
It's basically, it's almost like one of those compound German words where it's just describing almost like the entire route that you would take to get to the place. So it's like, go down the river a ways, and then you turn left at the waterfall, and then down at the bottom of the waterfall there is this big pond. But I think they just usually in conversation abbreviate it to like Llanfair PG.
Got it. That makes a lot more sense. Now it's like, okay, there's like reasons behind this.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Russian because I speak Russian, and I always joke that I like got blessed with the most useless second language ever because it's like, okay, if I knew like French, I could maybe move to like so many places in the world. If I knew Spanish, I could move to so many places. Even German, I could like move to a better country. But like, I got Russian and English to pick from, so I'm like kind of fucked. Like, there's not really much I can do,
In the Portland metro area, I think it is the 3rd most commonly spoken language, not including English. So there are a lot of opportunities to use Russian here.
Are you trying to guide me back to Portland? Why does everyone keep trying to do this? Let's listen to a little bit of this tune, and then maybe we'll talk about more Russian off mic. We don't need to clog the airwaves with the Russian. Okay, Am Gariad by Cate Le Bon. Here it is.
Gariad, Am Gariad, Gariad, Am Gariad, Gariad.
Next up, Broken Wire Telephone by The Rats. Okay, so I'll let you tell the people about The Rats, but I didn't know anything about them until I was reading the blurb about them when you sent this over. Very cool. I had no idea who The Rats were, and they're Portland royalty in many ways. Tell me a bit about The Rats.
Oh yeah, The Rats are massive, and so this is back to my taking my role as a Portland concierge very seriously. So I think more people outside of Portland have heard of Dead Moon, which is the band founded by Fred and Tootie Cole, and Andrew Loomis was the drummer of that band. And The Rats was the band they were in before with Sam Henry on drums. Sam Henry was also in the Wipers and then later in Napalm Beach. And the whole Fred and Tootie story is incredibly charming and beautiful. There's an amazing documentary about them. Fred had been in a lot of kind of 60s garage pop bands and then moved to Portland partly as like part of a draft dodging scheme. And he met Tootie and they fell in love over Twizzlers in a park. And for a while had tried to move up to Alaska to kind of start a farmstead, but they messed something up with the Canadian border and actually are now permanently banned from Canada for the rest of their lives. And what I really like about them as kind of models and role models is that they were doing a lot of their musical work kind of as adults with families. And there's some really charming, hilarious moments in the documentary where their kids are talking about how weird it would be to have their parents showing up to parent-teacher conferences in all of their punk gear because they were like gonna go play a show afterwards. And they're just really, I think, pretty deeply embedded into kind of the whole fabric of Portland and of Oregon and our kind of whole music scene here, and really true DIY icons. Like they owned their own record lathe. They bought actually the original lathe that Louie Louie by the Kingsmen was cut on and would use that to do their own records. Fred built their entire house, and he unfortunately passed in, I think, 2017 from cancer, and Loomis passed not long after that, but Tootie's still around. She still has an incredible band. You run into her at the bar sometimes. She's a really phenomenal, just mentor and old head in the scene and still very, very active. And it's very exciting and cool.
Hell yeah. And so you picked a song not by Dead Moon, but by The Rats, because you tell me, educate me on this. Were The Rats they came before Dead Moon. Were they one of the reasons that Dead Moon happened? Was
Yeah.
it was like the Rat? I mean, they're obviously time wise a predecessor, but style wise, like they were kind of like a warm up to Dead Moon, sort of.
Yeah, I would say so. And I'm blanking a little bit on some of the kind of exact timing of all of that history and how much overlap they had with like Sam's other projects. But I think that they were kind of, yeah, when the Rats broke up, Dead Moon kind of began to get going. And I guess I picked the Rats in particular because I think that Dead Moon they're deservedly legendary and they're kind of much more broadly known outside of Oregon, but the Rats are still a little bit like our kind of local secret. And then this particular song, I just thought that vocally it kind of blended well with a lot of the other artists that I had on this particular playlist. And it's long been a favorite of mine.
Did the Rats ever play any shows like that? I don't know, like when they ended, if they were totally done or if they had like shows, like reunion shows and stuff. Have you ever seen the Rats, or is that like just not possible? They were so short lived.
I think the band as a whole broke up like well before I moved here, possibly even before I was born. And I don't think, because I mean, Sam was around. Sam also passed just a few years ago, which was very sad, of cancer that had been undiagnosed for a long time. And so I don't think that like there was any practical barrier to them ever getting back together. I think it was just that they were all working on different stuff, but their kind of musical ecosystem has remained quite interconnected. So Sam used to play drums in a band called Jenny Don't and the Spurs, and Kelly Halliburton, who's the bass player of that band, was in Pierced Arrows with Fred and Tootie. So, you know, everybody's still friends. They just kind of had different creative priorities at different times.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, shout out to Mississippi Records, because this was released by Mississippi Records. I guess it was re-released, right? They maybe dug this up and re-released it. So shout out to Mississippi Records. I think the second time we've dropped a Mississippi-related thing on the show, so it's important. Let's listen to a little bit of the Rats. Here is Broken Wire Telephone. All right, we're halfway through the mixtape, which means that it's, I don't know. Is it all uphill from here? Is it all downhill from here? Who knows? How can it get better than the Rats? Next up is Sissy with a song called Sail and Rail. So tell me a bit about this one.
Sissy were a really wonderful band from Dublin, Ireland, and this is a song that they wrote around the legal battle to repeal the Eighth Amendment in Ireland, where a lot of people were Irish people who'd been living abroad came back home to vote in order to make it so that abortion could finally be legal in the Republic of Ireland. And the phrase sail and rail refers to what you used to have to do in order to get an abortion, which was take a train to a boat to usually England or mainland Europe in order to obtain an abortion. And the music video for this is incredibly, incredibly moving because it has a lot of really beautiful footage of all of the protests that were happening around that time and a lot of really amazing intergenerational solidarity of older women who'd had, siblings or themselves shipped off to maudlin laundries because they were shameful unwed mothers back in the 70s. And I picked it and included it because partly I think I've had a pretty strong like female artists mixtape, and just seeing all of these people as being kind of interrelated, and of course there's the sort of Celtic diaspora connection between Cate Le Bon and the musicians working in Ireland. And I find this particular song super moving, and then weirdly coincidentally, a little bit before I heard the song, I was myself working on a song that kind of reappropriates Enya from my own political aims, which this song also does in a very clever way. And so I thought it was kind of funny that like, oh, there's something about women of my generation and our love for Enya and how that shows up in our actually like very punk songwriting practice. So I thought that was really sweet.
Oh, that's amazing. When was this song released? Like, when was that amendment repealed? Or I don't know how to talk about Irish politics. I don't know if they have amendments or whatever, but yeah, when was that fight happening?
I want to say it was 2018. So incredibly, incredibly recently that was.
That is bonkers to me.
Yeah.
To be like, because you know how it's like, you just always think you're like, God, man, they got it so much better over there. They're like way ahead of us. And then you're like, oh, wait a second, you're like not that far ahead of us. Like,
It's so interesting. I mean, you see it with all kinds of also things about how Europe regulates political speech and how, as an American, we can really take for granted, like, oh yeah, you can write and publish just about whatever. But if you look at libel laws in England, if you look at, what kinds of things, like currently you can't say the words, I support Palestine action. You can't even say, I don't support Palestine inaction, because that means that you are lending your support to what the UK government has designated as a terrorist group. And
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you can be arrested.
I did not know that. That is insane.
So it's, yes, they do have universal health care that the Tories are trying their darndest to gut as much as possible. But then on the other hand, there are some other drawbacks for sure.
I got a good friend of mine who lived in Portland for a very long time, and by the time this episode comes out, they will have moved to Germany fully. And
wow.
I'm interested to know how that's going to go. So, it's all sounds rosy and beautiful, but who knows? Maybe there'll be things they'll notice right after the first year or two and be like, oh my God, I took this for granted or whatever.
For sure.
Probably not much, but maybe a couple things, Raisin Cane's, stuff like that. I don't know. That's a fried chicken chain we have out here in the East Coast. You guys probably don't have it. But,
no.
All right, let's listen to a little bit of Sail and Rail by Sissy. Next up, a favorite of mine, The Clash. I love, love, love The Clash. This song is called Ooh Baby Ooh. So tell me a little bit about this one.
Back to the theme of demos, oddities, rarities, things that might be kind of hard to come by. This is a really early demo version of what is, in its kind of final studio form, one of my very favorite songs by The Clash, Gates of the West, beautiful Mick Jones banger. And, part of the founding mythology of The Clash is that Mick Jones showed up with all of these really soppy love songs, and Joe Strummer was like, maybe we can make them a little bit more political and topical instead. And I think it's so wonderful to have the kind of before and after of this song, where Gates of the West is sort of about The Clash's relationship to American music and American politics, and then Ooh Baby Ooh is just straightforwardly a kind of frustrated love ballad, and I love them both equally, but thought that if I were making a mixtape, this would be one that I would put on there. But The Clash were also very much my first time that I could really identify myself as having a favorite band.
That's cool to hear. Was there a certain song or a certain album or a certain moment that made you feel that way, or was it Gates to the West?
I think, Gates to the West is one of my Gate of the West favorite songs. But, I turned 14, the day before, or the day after George Bush got reelected, which is just an amazing age to be deciding to get really into punk because you're so angry about the state of the world. And my brother, who was kind of my musical guru when I was younger, I would always get the music that he had sort of cast off a little while after he had stopped thinking it was cool. And so at the time I was listening to the Red Hot Chili Peppers a lot, and he finally sat me down and was like, this is untenable. You cannot do this to yourself anymore. And I think the first Clash song that really grabbed me and made me love them so much was Hateful off of London Calling. And I think that that's still a perfect no skips album. And then he gave me the UK version of their first record for Christmas that year. And then it was brilliant. This is how I'm going to organize the entire rest of my life.
You're lucky that you had him to pivot you like that. There's folks like me who had to find out on my own that the Red Hot Chili Peppers are bad,
Yeah.
But I got there. I got to The Clash. For me, it was Sandinista. Sandinista was the album that really just blew my mind. But in terms of songs, it was Spanish Bombs. Spanish Bombs was I was like, what the fuck? You can write about history? It sounds cool. What?
Yes. Yeah, that's, I don't even know if I used to be really into doing the kind of Nick Hornby style, top 5, top 10 lists. And it's been a really long time since I've definitively ranked my favorite Clash songs, but Spanish Bombs is for sure up in the pantheon. Big time.
Hell yeah. Well, let's listen to a little bit of The Clash right now. The song is Ooh Baby.
A place for you. Say, ooh, baby, ooh, it's not over.
And finally, the closer. All right, it's time. Let's bring in those Reprobatz. It's the Reprobatz. The song is Banshee Lobotomy. Tell me about this one.
This is a really wonderful kind of reunion project of three of my very favorite hometown friends, Jack O'Brien, Kevin Barrera, and Scott Kennedy. And they are some of the first like real punk people that I got to know after having extensively researched what punk could be when I was like 14, 15, reading Please Kill Me in the library. And they're also some of the people who first got me into tapes. So Jack and I dated for a few months when we were teenagers, and when he was living in Seattle, he sent me a mixtape in the mail that was, you know, the first time I heard the Buzzcocks and Wire and a lot of other really beautiful, really obscure, bizarre stuff. And then Kevin remains one of my most kind of staunch mixtape providers. Actually, my most recent Christmas present to him and his family was that I went to Mississippi Records and got like a bunch of the mixtapes that they make and sent off all the ones that I thought he didn't have. And they're just complete freaks and really brilliant creative minds, and have a very kind of fraternal place in my life now that we're all adults. And this is a band, they had been in a band when we were all teenagers called Sinister Minister, where they all got ordained through the Universal Life Church before they did shows. And that band was
so ridiculous.
Oh, it was fantastic. And they would have, you know, costumes and makeup and like the whole thing. And I don't actually know because I think one of their only shows that they played, actually, they were all teenagers, but they were playing at a bar, so none of their friends could actually go see them. And then many years later, when they'd all kind of scattered to different parts of the map, they all happened to be in basically the same geographic region for like a couple weeks and decided, you know, we're going to put a band together and do a demo and whatever. And so this is kind of the return of their collaboration, which I thought was very sweet.
I love that. And yeah, I don't know them obviously, but they seem like they have fun, you know what I mean? They seem like little trolls kind of, because like the tags on this are like traditional Martian folk and up the utters, and then I'll just read the blurb. It says, this album was composed in the charred remains of a Minnesota forest while roofing in the Statue of Liberty, eating space placenta in the rain in Detroit's oldest cemetery on Halloween night. Thanks to the surgeons of the plains who have inspired us with their methodical laser decapitation of livestock in southern Colorado over the last 60 years, and Coach Bambi. Miss you, bro. And it's just like, what the fuck is this? I mean, I kind of love it. It's they're trolling and they're doing it to the furthest extent. Shout out to the Reprobatz.
Absolutely. I don't know if I should reveal the secret of Coach Bambi, but Coach Bambi is a taxidermied deer head that was in Kevin's garage when they were all teenagers, who would oversee when they decided they all wanted to get buff before they moved off to college. Coach Bambi would oversee their attempt at workout routines, like the skinniest skater boys imaginable trying to pump iron.
I love that, of course. And, you know, I'm sure the rest of these are inside jokes that they never expected anyone to read on a podcast, but it just happened. Let's listen to a little bit of Banshee Lobotomy by the Reprobatz. And that's it. That's the mixtape. As promised, this is the spot for honorable mentions. So are there any folks you want to shout out right here?
This was so hard because I'm incredibly extroverted and I have a ton of friends who are all geniuses. And so narrowing it down to, you know, not hurt anyone's feelings or not leave anybody out was really, really difficult. And of course, I was also coming up with this just in the wake of the summer solstice, which is Victor Tsoy's birthday. So I was thinking, like, I gotta get the Kreuzammervier on there. But I couldn't quite make that blend in with everything else I was thinking about. But I guess to just think about, you know, one of my favorite current bands in Portland is called Piggy Bank. My friend Mary plays drums in that group, and they are just massive, just really phenomenal, incredible, bizarre synth punk. They do really wonderful stuff. My old housemate Miranda just came out with quite recently a new album with her band The Spatulas called The Blue Dot, which is out on Post Present Medium, and she's a fantastic genius songwriter. In a completely different, more sort of like folky direction, my friend Darcy Phoenix has been working on an album that she started recording in Scotland when she was on a songwriting residency there, learning about traditional Scottish fiddle music and also botanical dye. And so I'm really excited for the world to get to catch a glimpse of that when it's all mastered and ready to go. My friend Michael Hayes has a record coming out at some point that he's just been like starting to tease little bits and pieces of. And I actually was tempted to go like mega obscure, and there's only one live recording that's part of like a video of him performing at an acoustic guitar store. And I was going to be like, if you could just play like this little 3-minute clip or 2-minute clip of this one song, because that's the only way that you can find it, but it's called Outer Darkness. He performs under the name Matthias Braswell. And in terms of people who've been like really important to my songwriting and musical development, my friend Lisa Prank's record Adult Teen just turned 10. So the record is almost a teen itself. And I've known Robin, who performs as Lisa Prank, for a very long time, since she used to be part of this awesome band in Denver called Lost Cats of the Gutters, that my friends and I would play Beach Boys covers on the outdoor mall in Boulder to like scrape together enough bus fare to go see her in Denver. And I think she's just one of the smartest like pop punk songwriters in the entire world. So I could go on. I have probably like 500 other honorable mentions I could shout out. So if I have forgotten you and you're a dear friend of mine and you know that I love your music, just know that it was stage fright in the moment that drove you from my mind and not lack of regard.
If you are a dear friend who was forgotten in these honorable mentions, please leave a comment. Let us know how angry you are, and we will do our best to make it up to you. But we do need you in those comments.
Big time.
Yeah, Lisa Prank. That's a cool one. That jogs my memory as well. I feel like it's so cool to hear like, you know, stuff like Taco Cat and Lisa Prank and all these things. Like, oh, I haven't heard of this in so long. So that's awesome. I love it. All right. That is a beautiful mixtape. Some beautiful honorable mentions. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll play a quick game and then we'll get the hell out of here. All right, we are back with the game. Today, it's a fan favorite. It's One for the Road. If y'all have watched or listened to the show in the past, you may know the game. If you don't, here's how it works. I basically am going to ask you one blank, everyone should blank, and then you will tell me what that thing is. So, for example, let's start with the first one. It's an easy one. It's a layup, pretty much. It's the only music-related one. One artist everyone should see live. Who is one artist everyone should see live? Maybe not as easy as it seems. Coming from someone who has 500 honorable mentions, you know?
I know, that's so difficult. Oh, that's really... Well, this is mostly just because I saw them live recently, but Quintron and Miss Pussycat put on a really phenomenal and sensational live show. There's dancing, there's like a whole bunch of bizarre mad scientist self-invented instruments, and they usually also do a puppet show that will have some sort of compelling motive, like that there's nothing more important than doing wacky stuff with your friends. So they're really unmissable live, super fun every single time.
Okay, that's Quintron and Miss Pussycat?
Yes.
Okay, and that are they a Portland band?
No, they are New Orleans stalwarts. Mr. Quintron has played electric organ, and he invented this machine called the Drum Buddy, which is a specific type of drum machine that partly works by like spinning a coffee can to set the rhythm that the drums go. And I first found out about him because he did an album with the Oblivions in the 90s called The Oblivions Play 9 Songs with Mr. Quintron. And Miss Pussycat is his wife, who plays maracas and does backing vocals, and then also orchestrates these incredibly bizarre, often very violent, kind of Punch and Judy style puppet shows that she does as part of their act, and it's phenomenal.
That sounds like a real fucking show. That's not like three people up there playing instruments. That's a real fucking show.
It's amazing. I mean? Yeah.
Where did you see them?
I saw them at the Spare Room, which is a really wonderful old person's bar up in Northeast Portland. They have bingo. They have, I think they also have like diner style food, and it's been around since time immemorial. And it was part of this thing that my friend Joel puts together called Lonely God Fest, and it was so fun. But I've seen them a bunch of times. I think I first saw them at Rhinoceropolis in Denver when I was a teenager, which was also a really beautiful time.
Amazing. I love it. Next question, or next One for the Road thing, is one food everyone should try. So what is one food everyone should try?
Food is also really good. I guess if I'm keeping it like really Portland specific, you should try any pastry by Babcha Bread. I guess that's cheating because it's not just one food. So I'm going to go with you should try the Quince Danish from Babcha Bread. This is my friend Tommy and his partner Jade's. Jade is my friend, and then Tommy has become my friend by virtue of dating Jade. They're really wonderful. Jade's a farmer, Tommy makes pastries, and they're about to be opening a new brick and mortar location, and it's just the most crisp, precise, like viennoiserie pastry with wonderful, seasonally homegrown, beautiful fruits and vegetables.
And that's Babcha Bread, like I looked it up here, Babcia, Babcha, right?
You got it, yeah.
Awesome. Next time I'm in Portland, I'm going to try that because I haven't heard of them. And I love a bakery. I've been known to bring people together on a little thing called a bakery crawl. I've done it a couple times. It's I've learned lessons every time. But my latest lesson I learned is we should all just get one thing and split it. We don't all need to get a croissant. We should just get one thing and split. Last time we did it, we literally, I think, like, we're just tapped out for the day for food. We were just like, we all feel really sick, and like today really sucks now. And so
Totally.
That one's on me. The last one I got here for One for the Road is one skill everyone should learn. So this one, you can do any kind of skill you want. It doesn't have to be like a physical skill. It can be like a mental skill, but any one skill that everyone should learn.
I think a little bit of basic bike repair is really good to know. I'm by no means the most accomplished bike warrior in all of Portland, Oregon. I'm mostly a bus person these days, but at least knowing what to do, like if you get a flat tire or if your chain happens to just kind of pop out of alignment, that can really save you a lot of trouble.
That's a really great one to know. I mean, I haven't really had a bike for a long time. There was a period, I think just like everybody, right? When the pandemic happened, it was like, I'm getting a bike. And
totally.
Then I gave it to a friend after a couple of years because, at the time I was in New York, and it's way easier to bike in New York when it's no cars on the street.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm not built for this shit. But I did leave it locked up outside the office one time, and I came out to a missing seat. Someone stole my seat.
My old bike was just like harvested for parts because my old apartment building didn't have a good secure place to put it. So it was like just the seat or the brakes, or I think the thing that finally made me like decide not to have a bike for a couple of years was when someone stole just the handlebars. And I'm like, well, there's nothing I can really do about that. But
and
my
that
bike
is why. Yeah, I was going to say that is why you need to learn bike repairs, so that way when someone steals your handlebars, you can put on a new pair of handlebars or whatever.
Yeah, and not panic like I did at that time.
I would panic too. Rose, thank you so much for joining me on the show. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Why don't you take a minute or a moment to plug what you have coming up or where people can find you, and keep in mind this will go out July 16th.
Yeah, so this is actually really perfect timing because on July 18th, super exciting thing, Mississippi Records is reissuing Crumbling Myths by the Neo Boys, which was Portland's, I think, first all-woman punk band. And quite coincidentally, my friends and I had done a Neo Boys cover band for Halloween last year. And when we found out that they were going to be reissuing this record, and then also Pat Baum, who's the drummer, is going to be putting out a book that's some of her memories about participating in Portland punk in the 70s, we thought, it would be really fun if we could put something together to kind of celebrate that. And then it turned out that our friend Mary, who plays drums, was going to be out of town that weekend. And so our friend Aaron Yankee, who was organizing the event, said, why don't you ask Pat if she would want to play drums for this? So reconstituted Neo Boys, that's no original members except Pat the drummer, are going to be playing at Blackwater that evening, and that's going to be really, really fun and cool. I think that's the kind of most time-specific thing. During the month of July and probably into August, I'm going to have some paintings and drawings up at a small gallery in Portland called Mud Palace. You can find it by going up the stairs from Free Geek. So that opens July 11th. So in the past, when this episode hits the air, and will be up, I think, until sometime in August. And then I'm going to be spending the last little bit of July in Minneapolis, Minnesota at the TPH Artist Residency, coordinated by my friend Tom Booble. And so I think there will be some kind of event somewhere in there, some sort of zine reading / karaoke, but we haven't settled on the precise date, but it will be sometime between July 22nd and August 2nd in fabulous and beautiful Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Love that. And that is the best time of year to be in Minneapolis.
I can't wait.
You're going to get all the lakes, all the sunshine. Yeah. It's going to be beautiful. Listeners, viewers, I'll remind you once again, if you want to subscribe to our little cassette tape thing we do, you can do so at tapeclub.substack.com. The way it works is every quarter, that's 3 months for those of you who aren't in the business mindset, in the hustle grind mindset. Every quarter you'll get a shipment of 3 cassette tapes. So you'll be paying $5 a month, but you'll also be getting 3 cassettes every 3 months. Just works for us with shipping, but it averages out to about $5 a tape. It's pretty cool. If you like cassettes, I think you'll have a good time. Again, it's tapeclub.substack.com. You can also sign up for the free tier where you'll just get newsletters, podcasts, that kind of stuff. But it's a fun thing to do. You should check it out. I want to give a quick shout out to our associate producer, Olivia Stonier. I want to also give a shout out to Jamie Halliday for helping with booking. Obviously, Rose, shout out to you for coming on the show. And last but not least, the listeners and the viewers for listening and viewing. That's all I got for you all today, and I will see you next time. See ya. The J-Card Podcast is a fully independent production. It is made possible by listeners and viewers just like you. So if you want to support us, tapeclub.substack.com is the place to go.